You're listening to the Geek Watch Podcast, Episode 63, Shazam vs. Hellboy.
This is the Geek Watch Podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to Episode 63 of the Geek Watch Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
Well, we've got some movie news, we got some television news. Also, this week, we have a battle of the superhero movies as lightning from the heavens goes against the fires of hell, and I review Shazam versus Hellboy.
Oh, versus, okay.
And so we'll talk about both of those movies. But before we start that off, we have to remind everyone out there that the internet is not your friend. Because, unfortunately, there are spoilers out there for Avengers Endgame.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently somebody who...
Tom Holland.
Well, surprisingly, it wasn't Tom Holland this time. Or Mark Ruffalo, for some strange... Basically what happened is apparently somebody who was authorized to see the movie... I don't know if it was a reviewer. I'm not sure who this was, but either a reviewer or somebody who was involved with the studio got to see the movie early, and apparently they felt the need to pull out their phone and record some of it, specifically the last battle, the last few minutes of the battle, including how it ends, and they posted it online.
Oh, how evil.
Yeah, and other people have picked that up, and they've been trolling people on the internet. If they don't have the video, they are describing how the movie ends. And so a lot of people have already been talking about the spoilers, so we wanted to give you guys a heads up. If you've not heard, since we've only got a week to go, if you want to jump off the internet, that might not be a bad idea, because, again, there's been a lot of trolls out there who have been putting the ending of the movie out there in basically links. You know, it's very much like, if you remember... and I'm trying to remember which volume of Harry Potter it was, where there was a huge spoiler, something happened with Dumbledore, and somebody found out about it, and of course people are waiting to buy the book, and they're driving by screaming the spoiler out so that everybody knows. And again, we have your basic trolls.
That wasn't an issue of Deadpool.
Yeah,
because Deadpool is standing outside the bookstore in his Hufflepuff robes.
Yeah.
Deadpool is a Hufflepuff. He's one of my house. And someone drove by and yelled out about Dumbledore, and I think he ends up killing him because
it's a troll, and what do you do with trolls? Exactly.
You kill them.
So I just wanted to let the Geek Watchers out there know, if you haven't, there's been a lot of warnings out there to let people know, but if you haven't heard yet, if you don't want to get spoiled, you may want to avoid, especially Twitter and Reddit, because that has been inundated with a lot of these spoilers.
I don't have Twitter and I don't go on Reddit, so
yeah, but
that's why I haven't heard about it or seen it.
But you may want to unplug for a week, and I wouldn't blame you. So we just wanted to put that warning out if you hadn't heard, just so that you know. Again, the internet is not your friend, so just be careful. But where the internet was was our friends, there's been a lot of news coming out of Star Wars Celebration that took place this last week. And we finally now have not only a trailer, but we also have a name for the next Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker. So I think you've seen the trailer,
Yep.
Is that right? So what'd you think?
I mean, it was really exciting, and I'm looking forward to it, and the big reveal at the end. I just keep thinking, I was like, what Skywalker is going to rise? And that's what's stuck in me. There are no Skywalkers left, so I don't, where are we going from here? What the title is confusing. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly veiled in some sort of a mystery. It would seem that the likely, which is why I'm not going for it, but it seems like the likely thing is that Rey is somehow a descendant of Skywalker. I mean, that seems the most logical, which is why I'm leery of it. Now, of course, we have a son-in-law to Skywalker, obviously, with Kylo Ren. But I don't know if that's necessarily where they're going either.
Well, it's a nephew, but I mean, he's still a Solo. I just don't know. But it looks really good, just like everyone else, excited to see Lando and flying the Millennium Falcon. That looks great. You know, Ray is BA as always.
Yeah, that parkour flip over the interceptor was pretty impressive,
Yep.
for sure. And, of course, we got J.J. Abrams coming back for this, and so there's, of course, a lot of questions on, is he going to re-retcon what Rian Johnson retconned in the last movie? I don't know. There's no telling. Now, of course, we know that after this movie, they're going to basically chill Star Wars, and which they've done. I mean, there's always been like a huge amount of time passes between trilogies, but of course, this is going to be the end of this series, what they call the Skywalker series, which these 3 trilogies were part of that. So if and when Star Wars comes back, it's going to be something that's going to be completely different.
Well,
So-
we have, you know, in between we had the Clone Wars, you know, TV series, and now we're going to have the Mandalorian.
Right.
So that's going to be something that we can, you know, hang on to.
Oh, yeah. And that trailer for The Mandalorian looks really good. And so, from what I understand, that's going to take place between the original trilogy, the New Hope trilogy, and the modern trilogy we have now. That
Kind of the rise of the First Order.
Yeah, the fall, you know, what happens after the fall of the Empire, and then, of course, you know, the rise of the First Order. But I do have to say, of the Rise of Skywalker trailer, that laugh at the end.
Yeah.
So, Palpatine is coming back? Is that what we're getting here?
That's what
That's what everybody's saying.
That's what it looks like. And you do see that little piece of the Death Star laying on the planet.
Yeah.
Probably about where he landed. After Vader, you know, just threw him
Down the shaft.
down the shaft.
Yeah. Yeah, that little piece of the Death Star, which, yeah, it's compared to the Death Star, yes, a little piece. Compared to the planet that it landed on, you know, huge. Pretty massive, definitely. But so yeah, and of course that's Christmas, around Christmas time, that we'll finally get episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. We'll see. I mean, ultimately, this is 3 trilogies worth of movies are going to rest upon this, and we're going to get our last view, of course, of General Leia.
Yep.
And how they're going to be able to work her in. You know, it's going to be a little bit heartbreaking, of course, but. It'll be nice to see her in this last movie, but they've got a lot to wrap up in one movie. We'll definitely see how that turns out. But sticking with Disney, of course, we talked about on the podcast before Disney Plus's What If series. Well, they have finally announced what the first What If's going to be.
What is it?
Well, Bob Iger, the CEO, talked about this on a video call to the stockholders, and basically the episode is going to be what if Agent Carter had become the super soldier.
Okay.
Right. So
Captain Carter America.
yeah, there you go. Haley Atwell is supposed to be voicing Agent Carter, so they're bringing her back for that. Now this is an animated series, but she will be doing the voice, so apparently she'll be the one who gets the super soldier serum, and she will become the super soldier. And Steve Rogers is going to stay the scrawny kid that he was. However, apparently, he's going to be getting a gift from Howard Stark, an armored suit. So he may be becoming the first Iron Man.
First Iron Man.
Way before Tony Stark became Iron Man.
Yeah,
So.
and this is World War II, so I can just imagine he'll be like a tank. He won't be like sleek or like Iron Man is. He'll probably be heavy and bolted and.
Yeah, but he should be able to fly because Howard Stark did create a flying car.
Okay.
If you remember that from Iron Man 2. So he's probably going to be, a huge, bulky looking thing, but still have some of the Iron Man abilities, although, of course, they're going to be throwbacks, which I can't wait to see this. This is going to be so cool. Another trailer that I saw is for an Amazon Prime series coming out called The Boys. This is based off the Garth Ennis comic. Seth Rogen, who brought us Preacher, is going to be bringing us The Boys. And for the Geek Watchers out there who've not read The Boys...
I haven't read it, but I saw that trailer. Ooh.
Yeah, so basically we're in a world of superheroes. It's a superhero comic, but superheroes, of course, with great power comes great responsibility. And for some of these superheroes, they didn't get the memo.
Yeah, imagine superheroes that have no moral code, and don't think of the consequences of their actions.
Yes. And so we have basically bounty hunters who go out to take care of superheroes who cross the line.
Carl
So-
Urban.
Carl Urban, yes.
So you have Judge Dredd going after the X-Men.
Yes.
So,
So I'm looking forward to that. The trailer looks amazing. And of course, a lot of people, might think that I'm not really into dark superhero stuff. I am into it when it's appropriate. And definitely in this situation, it's certainly appropriate. And especially with what Seth Rogen was able to do with Preacher, I can't wait to watch this. I know it's going to be darkly humorous and humorously dark. So, yeah, we definitely have that to look forward to. But since we're talking Amazon Prime, there's something else came out in the news this week about Good Omens, which is, of course, our favorite that we're definitely looking forward to. There was a panel for Good Omens at South by Southwest. And Michael Sheen was on it, David Tennant, John Hamm, Neil Gaiman, but also director Douglas McKinnon. And then he dropped a little bit of a bombshell toward the end of the panel.
did he mean to, or was this like, oops, slip spoiler?
No, he meant to.
He meant to,
He meant
okay.
to do this. He's a big fan of Doctor Who, and of course he said we've got the 10th Doctor. But that's not the only Doctor Who thing that's going on with Good Omens. He says there are going to be 7 or 8 Doctor Who Easter eggs in Good Omens.
Ooh, huh.
So
And do we know how many episodes we have of Good Omens?
I don't know. They may have announced it, but I'm not sure.
This will be a fun Easter egg hunt.
Yes.
Yes.
But he was nice enough to give us the first one.
Okay.
So here's the first Easter egg to look for. There's a character, Newton Pulsifier, who's played by English comedian and actor Jack Whitehall. And the first time you see him going to a job, he's going to be wearing a tie. And that tie has the color scheme of the 4th Doctor's scarf.
Okay.
So we're not just talking New Who, we're talking deep cuts. So there's your first one. What he said was there are 7 or 8 of them in there in the series. They won't be easy to find, but for all the Doctor Who fans and the Good Omen fans, they'll give you something to rewind and see if you catch.
Right.
So something else to look forward to
Now,
when
what
Good
is
Omens.
that? May 29th?
Yes.
May 29th.
Yes. So something to look forward to. Amazon Prime is certainly paying off for me for sure. So let's do our head-to-head now. Shazam versus Hellboy. I saw them both on Saturday. I watched Shazam, and as soon as I was done, went and bought my ticket and saw Hellboy. And so you mentioned that you'd seen Shazam.
No, I've seen Hellboy.
You've seen Hellboy. You've not
Yes,
seen Shazam
have
yet.
not seen Shazam.
So let me start out then. I'm not going to do any spoilers for Shazam. I do want to talk about it because I have to say I really, really enjoyed it. Costume aside.
Seriously, you're still stuck up on the costume.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I said that
accepted
it
it.
wasn't. I said it wasn't a deal breaker. The costume doesn't get that much better, but the movie itself was amazing. I
Okay.
enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I will say a lot of people talked about how there was a real shift in mood with Shazam, and boy, there really was in this one. I'm not saying that Warner Brothers or the director or the screenwriters did this on purpose, but in a sense, it almost feels like a middle finger to Zack Snyder. Because everything that Zack Snyder's wanted to do in these movies, this is the complete opposite. There are some dark moments in it, but in a way that I think fits the story. And it's funny, it's heartwarming, there's a lot of family involved in it. And I don't want to say more than this, but because of certain characters in the movie, I thought, oh, well, this will be a good stepping point for, if they do another movie down the road, they could maybe look into some of this other stuff. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail, but in the movie, they didn't wait. You get it. It would shock the heck out of me that they went and stepped into this already, that they opened that door, which they did it in a very, for me, a great way, which really led into really the theme of the movie. And so it surprised me that we got what we got as soon as we got it. In fact, they, again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but even got more than expected from it. Zachary Levi just knocked it right out of the park. And there are a lot of, again, people say, this is a superhero version of Big.
Yeah.
And they even bring the piano in.
Yes.
For
Oh,
just
brilliant.
a second. For just a second, which the way they do it, it's like it's a moment where it breaks the tension because it's right in the middle of a big fight, let's say. And the fact that it happens, it's great. Oh, it's great seeing Jerry as a foster father. So, but I really did enjoy the movie. Again, it's a step away from a lot of the stuff that Zack Snyder brought into the movie. And we're not going to just. I know that a lot of people have been talking about some of the comments Zack Snyder made at a showing of Watchmen and some of the things he had to say about superheroes. He pretty much doubled down on a lot of the stuff that he believes in, and I get it. But obviously, Shazam didn't go down that road, and I'm glad it didn't, because it was absolutely everything that I wanted out of that movie. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of great action in it. There was a lot of great characterization in it. And they went places I didn't expect them to have the guts to go in this movie, because there was a passion and love for that character. And even when there was stuff that you're like, okay, they're not going to do that, because that's just, anybody who's read the old Shazam comics, they know that there was some crazy stuff that happened in those comics, and stuff that I thought in a million years they're not going to go down that road because it's just too weird. No, they did it. They flat out did it, and I was really happy with the movie. It was everything that I wanted. It was actually more than I wanted, so I really enjoyed it. And then I went to see Hellboy. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Hellboy for a minute. So
all right, as far as Hellboy goes, me personally, I absolutely loved it. Mm-hmm. I do understand why it's not getting the best of reviews. Yeah. It asks a lot of its audience. Mm-hmm. And when I left the theater, I felt like I had just binge watched a series. And were I to sit down and tell someone about it, it would sound like I was talking about a series. Very Monster of the Week, all packed in one movie. There's a lot of monsters. There's a lot of stuff going on. If you're going to go see it, you need to brush up on your fairy tale lore and your Arthurian legend. It's very, very important. You need to know what a changeling is right off the bat. You need to know fairies have a weakness to iron. You need to know all these things. And it doesn't give us... We don't get to see a lot of the animosity that Hellboy has toward humans because they have it toward him. Because all of his scenes with humans aren't that confrontational. He's in a bar and he's drinking with humans. He's in this arena and people are actually cheering for him. And so the character didn't get built up to where the switch for a dislike of humans, we didn't get enough of that. If you had seen the prior films, you kind of already had that, because you got to see a little bit more of that. This one definitely felt more like a comic movie, as to where the Del Toro movies felt more like a fantasy movie.
Right.
Which I'm fine with that. There is, if we're going to go spoiler free, there is one character in Arthurian legend that I wish they had swapped these two characters. Rather than this, I think you'll probably know what I'm talking about. And instead of this character, I wish they had used this character over here. I think, and you probably figure, exactly which one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So,
one definite thing that I could tell from the movie is apparently Hellboy is not part of any kind of a secret society that fights monsters. Everybody seems to, he's constantly out in public. People know about him. And so...
There are clandestine societies. We just don't get to really see it.
Right. We have you see one or two of them, but that's about it. Obviously if you're going in there thinking that, Hellboy is supposed to be keeping himself hidden so people don't know that he exists. No, no, that ship has sailed. Definitely. Now I know a lot of people talked about this movie and they compared it a lot to Suicide Squad, especially with the editing. And
which I haven't seen, but
I can see why people would say that.
Okay.
For me, I'd say the way I describe this movie, it's like speed dating. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of good stuff and then some bad stuff and then some good stuff, but it never long enough to really kind of dwell in anything. It's like, there was cool stuff. Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga.
Cool.
I knew as soon as the house stood up. And I was like, oh, it's Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
And again, talking about the hard R, she's one of the reasons it's a hard R.
Yeah.
And you are reminded, how scary Hansel and Gretel is, because this is the witch. Baba Yaga is the witch from Hansel and Gretel.
Right.
And you see her meat cooler.
Yeah.
And remember that she eats children. And
Yeah.
you get to see that.
Oh, yeah.
So, be warned when you go
Yeah.
see this hard R movie. It's a hard R movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But the thing about it is, again, going back to Baba Yaga, cool. But in 5 minutes, she's gone. But that's a lot of stuff. You'll get something for 5 minutes and then, okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next thing. And it's just constantly doing that. The fight with the giants.
Yes.
Cool.
Very cool.
But 5 minutes later,
Right.
you're off to the next thing.
Yeah, and and looking at the giants, they are very cool. The fact that they have taken car parts and made armor out of it.
Right.
That's brilliant. And if it had been a series and we had got 60 minutes of fighting giants, awesome.
Right.
And Baba Yaga was she was gorgeous and not gorgeous. I don't know how to. Okay. She was a
Well realized.
great looking character. They used
Yeah.
contortionists to make her move the correct way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what you would consider the main villain was the only problem for me, makeup and costume wise, in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Everything else, makeup and costume wise, I was great with. Hellboy looked great, and all the monsters looked great, except for her.
Yeah.
And that upset me.
Yeah.
That was, but
Yeah, because
again, it's me nitpicking.
Well, the thing about it is, yeah, they didn't really put a whole lot into it. But again, it's like everything is like, nothing happens in the movie that doesn't get resolved in like 5 minutes. Even the denouement of the movie, it starts and ends in 5 minutes. The pacing on this movie was just breakneck. We are introduced to a lot of new characters that we don't really care about because we don't get to really
Right.
spend a whole lot of time with them at all.
Yeah, you just
And-
shoved a lot of flashback exposition.
Yeah.
A lot of flashback exposition.
Oh, yeah, you're constantly jumping back and forth because otherwise we're not going to care about characters that, well, we don't really care about because we don't really get to know them. And a flashback exposition's not going to make you care about that
Right.
character, and we get to see some of these flashbacks, but again, it's so breakneck. There's so much stuff going on. In fact, there are 3 different, and I would say 3.5, maybe even 4 comics series that they pull stuff out of for this
Oh, wow.
this one movie.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's like nothing lasts longer than 5 minutes. And I'm not going to say that I hate the movie. It's not like, oh, God, never see this movie. I don't know if this is a movie to go to the theater to see. This might be a stay at home and watch it on.
and that's fine. I mean, I still recommend it. The good outweighs the bad in it.
Yeah.
It's just very fast. You're right. It's very fast paced, and be prepared to feel like you just binge watched a series.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff going on. And when you're in a scene, like I said, there's a lot of great scenes in there, a lot of great stuff happening. It's just, you have a very very tertiary connection between scenes. Again, it's like speed dating. It's like just when you get into like something, okay, it's over and time for the next one.
But there was something different that I personally can't remember seeing in a movie. What turns out to be the Changeling, and he's this big CGI character.
Yeah.
Okay, he speaks in this kind of Cockney British accent, and I was telling my friend Tara about it. I said, and he talks so fast, and she kind of did a double take and looked at me. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And because characters, that are like that, big, monstery characters, up until a couple years ago were puppets. So they had to talk slow so you can intonate what they were saying.
Right.
And move all the pieces and get
Right.
all the hardware in there working. Well, now that we have CGI, they can talk fast. So I had realized that that's really the first time I've seen that in a character like that.
Yeah.
I guess I could think about like the Jadoon in Doctor Who.
Right.
Like the way they're all puppetry and they're really cool Jim Henson like creatures.
Right.
But they speak slower than like a human would, and
Yeah.
speak clearer than a human would, so that you can get all that intonation and you can
Yeah.
feel the character's emotions. But you still got that in this character.
Yeah. Now, a lot of reviewers have talked about the CGI in this movie and how it sometimes misses the mark. And it is very 90s CGI and not in a good way. some of the CGI it's stuff that you expect from a movie in the 90s. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they were cutting corners, I think. And I get that. Let's be honest, even the first two of the Hellboy movies, the Del Toro films, they weren't blazing successes by any stretch of the imagination. David Harbour, he was great. I loved him as Hellboy, and I sat and thought about it because he is the one character you really have time to care about. And I wondered, kind of questioned myself, was that David Harbour who was able to do that, or was the first two Del Toro movies carrying most of the baggage for that? But I don't think so. I think David Harbour, I think he was great as Hellboy. I would love to see another Hellboy movie, but I'd like to see it again. And we talked about this last week about how it seemed like that there was some conflicts, of different groups of people, wanting different things out of the movie. A real reason why there was this comparison with Suicide Squad, because of the fact that you did have two different houses editing this movie. They had individual cuts, their own cuts of the movie, and they got crammed together into one movie. Yeah. And that's why the editing there was as choppy as it was. Oh, yeah. And I think,
like, if I could have cut out, the fight with the clandestine society and got more of this character toward the end, I would have loved that, that kind of thing. It's like, why he, again, like you said, he was there and then he was gone. I was like, but he's him. He's who he is. I don't want to spoil it.
Right.
Really, honestly, it's a great thing to go see, but really brush up on your fairy tale lore, and your Arthurian legends.
Yeah, because there's a lot.
King Arthur, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that the audience is kind of expected to know.
Right.
And scenes don't have the time to really, unless it's a flashback, where they'll give you a 2 or 3 minute flashback to basically say, okay, this is why you need to care about this character, or this is why this character cares about this character. There's a reason for that. But some of the things that happen, you don't get any kind of a background on it at all, and you just kind of have to go with the flow. So if you manage your expectations on this movie, which if you've read any of the reviews, I figure you probably are going to manage your expectations, because again, it hasn't done the best in the reviews, and of course this last week's box office wasn't the best. It came in third after Shazam, which was number one again, and rightfully so. And then there was a movie called Little.
Yeah, which is kind of like the opposite of Shazam, isn't it?
Yes, it's the opposite of Big, exactly. It's somebody who wants to be a kid again and becomes a kid again.
Right.
So strangely enough, the top two spots the last week were, in a sense, derivatives of a Tom Hanks movie.
Yep. Or vice versa. Or,
exactly. So,
I can't think of it. Zac Efron was in it. And
I know what you're talking about.
Right.
I just don't remember the name of it either. So Hellboy, I wanted to like it more than I did, and I enjoyed, like I said, individual scenes. I enjoyed it. as a movie in total, the pacing and the way the story develops, it doesn't quite work. But on the other hand, like I said, when it's good, it's really good. It's like going to the buffet, it's like a little bit of this, and I really enjoyed this, but don't get attached to it, because we have to go to the next thing. But yeah, it's a great sampler platter, I think, of what a great Hellboy movie would be.
A series. If they had made this into, if Netflix had picked it up, or even Amazon or Hulu, and done a Hellboy series, this is exactly what I want.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it does. I think that's a really good description. It is a series that was basically crushed into less than into a movie in less than 2 hours. And a lot of the things that happened, if they'd had time to breathe and to develop, they'd have been amazing. Yeah,
you missed out on your monster of the week. You didn't get to learn about your lore. Like, you didn't get a library scene of Hellboy sitting down reading about changelings and or talking to the clandestine society about the giants,
Right.
You got 2 sentences. Oh, yeah, they come around every now and then.
Yeah. There's a research scene, but again, it lasts 2 minutes. And then it's gone,
right.
So, again, I think we both can agree that, even though we both enjoyed the film, and I didn't regret going to see it, and neither did you. Certainly the criticisms that have been leveled to this movie,
They're justified.
They're definitely justified. And I hope that this is not the last we see of Dave Harbour as Hellboy. Because I think, again, his performance was amazing.
And even the characters that we did get, I want to see more of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some of them, you know.
Daniel Day Kim, who, he's always good. He was in Lost and Hawaii Five-0 and Angel. And his character, we get a little bit of him. We learn a little bit. And we get to see him do his thing. And it's awesome. I want more of him. And even the young girl, I want to see more of her.
Yeah, more than the 5 minutes we got each time, So, but yeah, so definitely, if you've not seen Shazam yet, check out Shazam. As far as Hellboy is concerned, like I said, a lot of great scenes in it. I don't know necessarily if this is you need to go to the theater to see it. This may be one of those wait for a rental. And like Mandy said, definitely know a little bit of your homework.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of...
If you love your King Arthur, your Merlin, your Sword in the Stone stuff, you're going to love this. If you've read your Green Fairy book or your Red Fairy book and Queen Mab, you'll love it.
Yeah, definitely. And also, definitely go through and read some of the comic books as well, because there's one character in particular that's the cameos. I don't want to go into who's a really big deal if you've read the comics, but if you never read the comics, you have no clue about this character whatsoever. And so it'll go completely over your head if you don't know who they are. Yep. But so read the comics as well, but it may be worth a home rental, but at the same time, there's a lot of great stuff in there, sometimes covered up with not the best CGI. Yeah, there's a lot of little bits of things in this movie that are really enjoyable and definitely worth a view. So, And so with that said, we come to the end of episode 63 of the Geek Watch podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. From Andy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.